everyone. I really don't think that I have too much to share about chapter 4. Um, and unfortunately, I think it's because, I know this too well, because this was basically my life in college, which is sad. But uh, I think, and this was in 2004. So I can only imagine that it has gotten like way worse. Um, I think it's just very sad, right? That students are still like working hard at hiding their feelings, and that they are told to separate their feelings from their body, and that they can have a sexual encounter without that sexual encounter meaning something. Um, so she's describing how Dr. Grossman describes a freshman named Olivia who came to see her in deep depression over her first sexual encounter with a boy who dropped her soon afterward. And this girl asked her, like, why do they tell you to protect your body from herpes and pregnancy, but they don't tell you what it does to your heart? So that was sad, and it made me think about Libby and Enzo too, and how I'm preparing them to talk about these things, and like even having the talk, right? Like we bought a series of books, and since they were little, we talk about what sex is and how it's good and how they should look forward to it with their spouses and all of these things that we tell them. And I think that's basically what we can do to equip them as moms. This is so true. Like there's on page 123, it talks about how even like the clothing for children is so over sexualized. Like there's one infant clothing that says, "I'm too sexy for my diaper." I'm like, what in the world? And it's just so funny because then you have all this abuse and all this sex trafficking, and like people complain about culture and about the things that you see in the culture, but it is the same culture that is driving all these things, right? Like pornography and even sex dolls in page 125, which those things already exist, right? Like I think I saw an article the other day about how a man just got married to like this robot because she's amazing, and she basically says yes to everything and like just talks to him the way he wants to be talked to and all that stuff. I really like how she talks about the science of sex, and how on page 127, like these hormones, right? Oxytocin, and I think there's the other one for men. I don't remember the name, but how basically your body is created for a purpose, right? And so obviously God knew, and he created the chemistry that drives your body, and how it's just like a mystery, and something like the sexual intimacy between a couple, it's supposed to represent something that has to do with Christ and his church. And that's the purpose of marriage, and that's exactly why we won't be married in heaven, because that would be fulfilled, because we will be together with Christ forever again. Just for real. And so what else did I see that really well, I really enjoy how she describes all these people, right? Like Sigmund Freud and Margaret Sanger, and all their influence in the thoughts about sex, and the way people think about sex nowadays, and Alfred Kinsey and Wright and Rimmer, like sex as an act of worship. She says in page 135, the most powerful worldviews are the ones we absorb without knowing it. They're the ideas that nobody talks about, the assumptions that we pick up almost by osmosis. Osmosis or osmosis, I don't know how to pronounce it, but you know. And I think, I don't really know about you. I know that my children have watched many shows that, well, probably my parents never even thought about even not letting me watch. But when we sit with the children, we are very intentional to like pause it. At least I do, because Emerson, sometimes when we watch movies, he's just like, let it go. And at the end of the movie, like, don't interrupt the movie or don't interrupt the series or whatever it is that we're watching with them. And we talk about it, like, are they too young for this, or are they too, will they get it or whatever. But we are intentionally watching shows with them. And we pause it and we tell them, like, did you just get what he said? Or did you just get the look that this man gave this woman? Or like when she turned around and he looked at her butt, like, did you see that? Like, why do you think he's doing it? Like, all these worldviews are everywhere, in every single cartoon, in every single Avenger movie, in every single place and song. And there is no way our children won't be in contact with them. But I think that we need to prepare them so that when they see the worldview, they recognize the worldview. And I think it's when we as parents enjoy that show too much, to the point that we just assume it as normal. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying like an Avenger movie, because I have fun with them. They're funny. There are some parts that are really funny, but like, if we normalize that, if we take it for granted and we don't even mention to our children, you know what, like, that's wrong. That's when the worldview is assumed. And then if your child sees or actually doesn't see that you speak up against that, they probably assume, oh, then that's okay. Also, and she's asking, like, is it enough just to be in love, to engage sexually? I don't know what she mentions, but like, I think she mentions that, I don't know how, like, a high percentage of people say that it is okay to engage in sexual relations. Even Christians saying that it's okay. Oh, you know what I really like in page 138, when she's talking about when Adam knew Eve. And I know, well, I'm not a pastor, so I'm not gonna teach anything, but I have heard pastors, like Steve Lawson. There's a beautiful teaching online. I'm sure, like, there's on YouTube or whatever, Ligonier, talking about the doctrine of election. Like, whenever, like how, I don't want to call people names, but Armenians, let's just say Armenians, they say that the doctrine of election, like, God sees into the future, right? And he sees those people who will believe in him, and based on that fact, he chooses them, right? So, like, basically on Romans 8, and those who him foreknew, he called. Like, what God foreknew was a fact, the fact that they would choose him. But like, whenever she says here that whenever in the Bible that word known is used, it means the term carries connotations of a deep personal way of knowing, right? And so it is sometimes used as sexual euphemism, like Adam knew Eve, and she conceived, or she bore a son. It means that sex is meant to be profound connection. So when Romans 8 says that God knew us, like, he knew us relationally, that he loved us with a special love, electing love, and that's why he called us. I think it was really, really awesome that she showed that. And that's exactly covenant marriage, right? It is intended to be a visual image of the human divine relationships. In page 139, she says that our sexuality is meant to reveal God's own character. And then I think somewhere, either before or after, she just talks about Romans 1 and how the whole unrighteousness, like the list of sins, and how they end up worshiping the creature rather than the creator. And if you continue reading Romans 1, like at the very end of that section, then it's like when Paul says that, men exchanged like their passions, and they began having sexual desire for one another in ways that were unnatural. And I just made a note, like that's basically why homosexuality is basically, I have heard James White say this, like homosexuality and all this LGBT thing is basically the ultimate rebellion, right? Because like it's like a mirror. You end up worshiping yourself. And then they say, including like all the sins that are, all the sexual sins that are listed in Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians 6. But then Paul continues saying, but you were washed, you were sanctified. So if you have truly repented, you will fight that desire. And some of you. So this is basically the biblical argument for gay Christianity, right? Because like you may have same-sex attraction, but you are not gay because you were washed. Like that was you. You were sanctified. You were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And then she goes into the term porneia, and how from the very beginning Christianity was just not traditional. I think we have been so blessed in this country. And I mean, I don't even know, right? Because I'm new to the party. Because like I've been just living in the US for 14 years, I think. But like for what I know, right? Like, or for what I see, this country has been blessed, like the West, I think, what people see as the West, America. So blessed with so many theologians and all these wonderful things that many of the, many of those things like freedom or equality for like women, right? All these rights, all these Judeo-Christian values are so embedded in the culture from when America started as a nation, that like we now look back and we just assume the worldview, like all these things, like it's just the Christian worldview is still there, or it's what gave us all these beautiful things, that we forget how radical the teachings of Jesus and Paul were. Like, husband, love your wife. Like it was a command. Like just the fact that God had to say, husband, love your wives, is because it was hard, right? Just like for us, wives, submit to your husband. Well, page 144 reminded me of something that sometimes I tell Libby, like when we talk about these things, like having sex before marriage and all that stuff. Like the temple was the sacred space where people went to meet God. And so we've talked about why it's sinful, not just like it is sin, but why is it sin? And I mean, it would be like, this is what I tell her, it would be literally like you being in the temple. Imagine, I just put a picture in her head, like imagine you are at church, right? And you're having this sexual encounter, and like God is watching, and it's not holy at all. And so then I say, well, now multiply that 1,000,000 times, because you are the temple. If God is indeed with you, within you, like you are the temple, and you're basically desecrating the temple. And it doesn't matter if you love this guy, because if it's not a relationship that the Lord has blessed, then it is not holy. Anyways, so, and I think I am looking forward to just talking to her more about those things, because she's really excited, and I think she's really looking forward to like getting married. I mean, she's 10, but she just talks about those things a lot, especially because she wants to have a baby. What else? Yeah, and then how we have turned babies into enemies because basically they just teach, how the how-tos of sex and contraception, but they never mention, like words of love, marriage, family, or children. Um, and I'm almost done because I think this was so repetitive, which is great because and obviously, this was basically my college life. So how you see babies as enemies, and this was truly sad. This is the percentage that I said, page 151. 61% of self-identified Christian singles, in this online Christian mingle survey, said that they were willing to have sex, casual sex, without being in love. Only 23% said they would have to be in love, and only 11% said that they were waiting to have sex until they would marry. And a 16-year-old said, okay, a 16-year-old, a Christian teen said, I don't think sex has anything to do with the fact that you're married or single. I think it's a choice each person makes by asking themselves if they're prepared for the outcome if something goes wrong. So she's just thinking about, it's okay to have it as long as I don't get pregnant, number one. And number two, it's like a choice. So I think what struck me, it strikes me, whatever you say it, is that this 16-year-old, like, she has never been discipled. So it's just sad to see that you're 16 and either your pastor never has preached on that or your parents never have told you, whether it's sin or not and why not. Well, I mean, it is sin and why it is sin. So just the whole conversation with what's sex, what is it for, why is it supposed to be holy, and so how this approach, like the worldview that we live in, just like it's just like a no big deal view of sex. And many times, like I looking into my past, I'm like, man, like I wish sometimes, like I wish I would have been raised differently, and I wouldn't have to go through all the things that I went through. But I know that God had a purpose, and He has a purpose, and like sometimes I tell Libby, even if the only purpose, like I know there are many, like more than one, but even if the only one was that I would be able to teach you through all my mistakes, then that's awesome. Like that's, that's great, because that doesn't mean you won't make mistakes or that you won't sin, but I'm thankful to, like walk with you through all these growing things and growing experiences. Anyways, oh yeah, this real sex week or whatever that's happening at universities. And I'm thinking more and more, with Libby and with Enzo, like what college are they going to? I'm just thinking, like many years ago, I would have like loved for my children to go to this, like obviously with scholarships or whatever, to these like, well-known universities. Like Emerson went to OSU, right? Or like an Ivy school or whatever. But I'm like, no, like I was listening to a podcast, Cross Politic, and the guy said that the education has to be K to college, like not K through 12, but K through college, because it's like you invest all this time in your children, and then you just hand them to like this leftist university, right? So anyways, I think like all colleges are so like, terrible. And I'm not saying there are children who cannot withstand those pressures. I'm just saying that not everybody is, so who knows. Yeah, but based on this, like all colleges are just like indoctrination camps now. Yeah, just leaning to the left. And I think that's it. Like this chapter was so easy to read. I think chapter 5 is going to be very interesting, because now it's just kind of like basically the same thing, but now just gonna talk about homosexuality and transgenderism, like whether you are born this way, right? Like the gene, like the gay gene, I guess. And is my body me? Like, am I like, is my body telling me who I am? Queer theory versus the body and all the stuff that goes in the mind of people who struggle with this. So anyways, I think this is the shortest video. See you later, guys. Thank you. Bye.